We should not allow a tiny minority of shoddy scientists and science and extreme ideologues to compete with scientific fact.
John Kerry's a busy guy right now with everything going on, but he still had time not long ago to stop in Indonesia to talk about a climate change action plan. But despite his attempt to redress the issue of conflicting scientific reports, the debate over climate change continues to divide experts. Dr. Patrick Moore, co-founder of Greenpeace, quit the organization in 1986 after it strayed away from its objective science and took a sharp political turn to the left. He took issue with the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that since the mid-20th century, it's extremely likely that human influence has been the dominant cause of observed warming. Moore continued to say that there is no scientific proof that human emissions of carbon dioxide are the dominant cause of the minor warming the Earth's atmosphere has experienced over the last 100 years. He told a Senate committee that there is also that when modern life evolved over 500 million years ago, CO2 was more than 10 times higher than it is today, yet life flourished at the time. There is so much information out there right now, JD, that anybody can make a case on either side of this argument. But we got to talk to a guy that we know and trust.
And that's what we want to do right now. Joined on the phone, we are by Professor Larry Bell, director of the Geraldine Hines School of Architecture, University of Houston, and author of the book Climate of Corruption, Politics and Power Behind the Global Warming Hoax. Professor Bell, welcome to America's Forum.
Well, good morning, fellas.
It's great to have you here on the show with us.
Now,
well, it's good to be on. Thanks.
Your book deals with debunking several so-called myths on climate change. Would you elaborate for us what you believe to be the major myths of this climate change argument being made by so many on the left?
Well, first of all, they rephrase the argument where in many cases there's no argument whatsoever. As you well know, they talk. First it was global warming, and then it was climate change. And first of all, I don't know anyone that disputes that there's been some warming since about 1850, since the last little ice age. There's been about 1.5 degrees of warming every 100 years, and that seems to be continuing. Although for this past 17 years, global temperatures have been totally flat, and they may resume. They may continue to get cooler. Some people predict that's going to happen because particularly some changes on the sun that happen intermittently, and then some people are thinking it may continue to warm. But there's absolutely nothing new about climate change. It's been changing for hundreds of millions of years, although recently not so much.
Now, Larry, a common slogan used in following politics and really any endeavor is follow the money. If we follow the money in this global or this climate change debate, where is the money going and why?
Well, you've got to understand it's a multi-billion-dollar industry just for the research alone, and if the scare goes away, then the money for these, foundations and university departments and so on that are studying this stuff, the money goes away. So you got to keep a strong fear factor going. The United Nations, of course, wants to keep it going because it's another excuse to distribute money because we're, of course, wrecking the climate, wrecking the planet. And so that, give us, if we provide a lot of money to some of these other countries, of course, the problem will go away, I suppose. There's also, without the climate thing, a lot of, most of the argument for all this renewable energy stuff goes away because, it's all this anti-carbon stuff, which is supposed to be killing the climate, and that's a bunch of nonsense. There's never ever been a study that's indicated any measurable effect of human carbon dioxide on climate. Matter of fact, it's, our contribution, if you look at carbon dioxide levels at 4/100 to 1% of the atmosphere, humans only contribute about 3% of that 4/100 to 1%. It's just barely a trace. And there's never been any measurement of the impact. Theoretically, could it have some influence? Certainly. can also have some cooling influences as the oceans, which are huge carbon dioxide sinks. As they warm, they release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and they also release a lot of water vapor, which is the largest greenhouse gas, which produces low-level clouds, which produces cooling. So, I mean, it's a balancing act, and nature is very good at that.
Well, you talked about the fear aspect of all this, Professor Bell. I want to talk about a recent Wall Street Journal article that took a look at food prices in association with the drought out in California. The article and others have talked about as global temperatures continue to increase, we're only going to experience more droughts and food shortages here. This is one of the things that's being used by the folks who are trying to pimp this climate change agenda here to help sell the narrative. What's the comeback to that, and how do folks who believe that you do, and many people else out there believe that this might be a hoax, how do you combat that in a debate?
Well, first you look out the window and you realize that there's been no warming for the last 17 years. So how do you explain the drought in California? Things always, there's always changes in temperature. The global temperatures, from 1910 to 1940. We saw warming from 1940 to the late 70s. It was flat to cooling temperatures, and all of a sudden, mid to late 70s, the next ice age was coming, and it was all over the New York Times and so on. And then about 12 years later, Al Gore has his hearings in Washington. Oh my God, the Earth's on fire, and we're having global warming. That was 1988, and then 1998 we had the big El Nino year, but we've had no warming in 17 years. So first of all, blaming the drought on global warming is nonsensical, and we haven't had global warming for 17 years. The time most high school students today have been alive, we haven't had any statistical warming. Second of all, carbon dioxide, if that's the issue, is plant food. It makes plants grow warmer. There weren't a lot of jungles, there weren't a lot of rainforests back in the ice age, which dominate the planet about 90% of the time. So, the warmer climates, the carbon dioxide is what is plant food. It makes plants grow. It nourishes. All those great advances of civilization have occurred in the warm years. The medieval warm period, which was 1,000 years ago. You had Eric the Red in Greenland. Raising sheep and goats on the grasslands of western coast of Greenland. I was in Greenland in the 60s. I didn't see a whole lot of sheep and goats. How much of that?
Well, Larry, let's pick up again the political science angle. Twice now you've mentioned the name of Al Gore. Before we brought you on, we heard from our own Secretary of State, John Kerry, speaking about the challenges of climate change. Why is our Secretary of State, Mr. Kerry, telling the world climate change is a weapon of mass destruction?
Well, I think there's, I can offer a couple of theories. One, I think Kerry's been seeking a Nobel Peace Prize for a long time. Heck, if Gore got one and Jimmy Carter got one and Barack Obama got one for just showing up, I wouldn't John Kerry be always, well, he's been a big, climate, beater for some time. So, so one thing is if you can't settle the Middle East and all these other problems, let's fight climate. Sure, we're going to win that one. And
a hedge on the foreign policy debate. Larry Bell, thanks so much for being with us. Always great to get your insight on this. This issue is not going away. The debate continues no matter how much evidence is out there right now. Larry Bell with us from the University of Houston.
And up next, while the search for the missing Malaysian jetliner is scaling back, unconfirmed claims surface that the plane might have landed in Pakistan. More on that when we return.